1935, the Lions win the NFL championship. The Detroit Tigers take the World Series. The Red Wings bring home Lord Stanley's Cup. Joe Louis begins his rise to world domination. This transforms the Motor City into Detroit, City of Champions.
Crack of the bat. We are off and running, putting it in the ground.
All the golfer terminology.
That's it. Yep.
There's not a ton of golfer
I just hear that
sound effects.
I just hear that bat and I'm like, oh, here we
Yeah.
go. Off and running. It's not the ding of my email, at least.
Yeah,
I hate when I
know.
do that. But it's Detroit, City of Champions, the podcast. I'm Jamie Flanagan.
Charles Avison.
And just rolling around in 1935.
We're getting there at some point with Walter Hagen.
Amazing stuff. Well, he was such an innovator in the sport, and why he's should be more well known.
Oh, dude, he's amazing. Every single.
He's
We got a couple of great stories today too, but we've seen it. This guy was professional golf.
Right, but he's like a ghost.
Yeah.
As far as like knowledge of today, he'll come up in a movie or his name is on the board in a movie.
Yeah.
But not always as prominent as we're discovering he should be.
I mean, he's the Babe Ruth of golf.
Right.
He is like actually, I take it back. I think he's more, I take it back in retrospect, because I've been saying he's the Babe Ruth of golf. I think he is more along the lines of like a Ty Cobb of golf.
Okay.
Because we're like, in the next episode, we're going to be talking about a little bit about how basically like, he like right after like when Hagen's starting to finish up, like, well, not finish up, but in the 20s, late 20s and 30s.
Yeah.
What starts to emerge are these, because of like the influence of the home run in baseball. Like the home run just becomes massive because of Babe Ruth.
Mm-hmm.
That it kind of ushers in golf and a similar era of these like big power smashers, like these big power drivers. And like Hagen was like going, man, this is a whole new era. Like these guys are just smashing the ball, like. And so it was kind of like that. Like he ushered in like this whole new professional world of golf. And then it was like, the next generation of like big hitters and all this that kind of took over after he was there. But so I think that he's more, I guess you could kind of mash a Cobb, like a combination of Ty Cobb and Babe Ruth. But he was the Walter Hagen of golf.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he's like his own guy. Like he's the guy. This is, we showed the picture of the knight in armor where he's ushering in the poor peasant through the door.
Yeah.
He's the guy that he ushered in the world of big money golf. I mean, it's undisputed. Every single person talks about this is the guy, and every single example we talked about how, before he came along, golf was like, kind of an aristocratic game. Amateurs were like, professionals were viewed as just, pure mercenaries and kind of like the dregs of the society. And then he turned it into an incredibly like respectable, legitimate, sport, and ushered in this era of big money golf. And I mean, we've already seen it every single step of the way. Like this guy is involved with every single thing that we regard as like normal in the world of golf. He was there for like the founding of it. He was there. It was like the simple idea of people paying money in the gallery to watch the golfers play.
Incredibly important.
That's just
to the
that.
sport.
Just that. He was like, and he was the biggest earner when they were doing that. And he's like, during World War I, you were just doing relief funds for, to just charge admission to raise money for the, for the war, for Red Cross. And they're like, we have an idea here. And Hagen's like, I raised all this money. He was a top earner. And they're like, and he's like, we might be onto something when the war's over. But I mean, it's just fascinating how exactly he is the dead center of everything that's happening in the world of golf. And it's just all kind of whirling around him. And the people that he met, the people like he just knows everybody, man.
Yeah.
He just knows everybody.
And so he's as important to golf as our listeners are to the podcast.
There you go.
No,
Yes, and if he was around, he would like and subscribe.
And the viewers, yes, the people watching and listening to the podcast.
Yes.
I just want to say thanks.
Absolutely.
And like, subscribe. You're the reason. So
yeah, every like, every subscribe, every share, every person that you tell about the podcast, it really helps. Which it's they say it's it's tough to build. It's the first like 10,000 or whatever, the toughest to get
Sure.
to. But once you sort of build up a certain pile of listeners and viewers, then it starts to really explode, you know. So we're, you know, every single, like, we are at the point where every single like and subscribe and all this really helps. So we appreciate everything.
Yep. So thank you to everybody who's tuned in at some point or another, found their way through the shows, maybe purchased some Detroit City of Champions merch, like the blazon.
Yeah, the blazon. That's what we call. I think that's what we call it. Yeah.
Yeah. So the crest. This is the City of Champions that Chris
coat of arms expert.
Yeah, put together. Available. Wearingfunny.com. That's a good spot to go for some cool Detroit City of Champions gear.
Yeah.
The website, Detroit City of Champions. You got some T-shirts and the books up there as well.
Yeah.
People can get a hold of just in time for the holidays. People listen whenever, but
and if you're in the Detroit area, come check me out at the. I'm always at the. Most of the time I'm at the 12 Oaks. There's a store called Inspire Marketplace at 12 Oaks Mall. I'm there 5 days a week, and then the other 2 days a week I'm at the Partridge Creek store. So I'm at pretty much every day selling books and talking baseball and doing all kinds of stuff in the store. So come on up and you just come up, have a conversation.
But it's the Hague.
Yeah,
the Hague, Walter,
right.
telling the story of himself, right?
Yeah, the Hague himself. That's
a lot of what we're pulling is coming from the book.
Talk about. I mean, as far as a primary source goes, it doesn't get any more primary than this.
Yeah,
this
he
is
wrote
his
the
book.
Thing.
Yeah. And he's fairly self-deprecating in the book too. Like, he talks about his highs and lows. You know, I mean, and then his sort of extracurricular activities, should we say? He's like, it kind of harkens to a different era. And
he's like, we went to the bar.
Well, we've got a couple of risque component stories today where he's like, he's kind of going, we were out with these girls or whatever, but he doesn't. Right, but he kind of read between the lines as far as what they're doing. Okay. But it kind of harkens to a different era where, nowadays, like, every single thing is like blown up. Like, the reporters and they dig through people's garbage cans for everything.
Oh my gosh.
And so it just kind of harkens back to a different era where it's like, you can kind of read between the lines for some of the stuff, but he does. That's not like, it's just kind of like he's just kind of giving you like a little idea, but it's like his personal life. Like, it's not, it's none of your business. That's how it used to be. Was usually, I mean, the sort of extracurriculars were a little bit off, unless it was some kind of a major scandal.
Sure.
It was somewhat off limits. I mean, it kind of was frowned on. You want to focus on the sport more than anything.
Another interesting thing about golf, compared to what we were talking about, I'll give it to hockey too. More of an international sport.
Totally.
So baseball, U.S. dudes playing a U.S. game. Football, American football, U.S. dudes playing a U.S. game. Hockey, Canadians coming over here to play a Canadian game in U.S. towns back in this era. So that was a little more international because you had a lot of Canadians.
Totally.
But golf.
Truly,
you're talking about the French Open and the British Open and
Australia,
the US Open.
Australian Opens.
So they're going. He's traveling all over the world, and these other golfers are traveling all over the world and coming here. So people are meeting and seeing people from other cultures. I think it's fascinating.
It is,
and it's the fight. Like Walter, he went to do the British Open and wasn't treated very well. The guy before him the year before was treated even worse.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, I'm going to win it, and didn't win it, but then did eventually a couple of times. But then, British guys are winning the U.S. Open. And so that rivalry just really ramps up, and it's
totally.
How's that getting us?
That's where
we're in 1927, right?
Yeah, that's where we're. So that's kind of we've one of the sort of main themes we've gone over just on so many occasions here. I mean, one of the primary themes that we have seen thus far has been this. As you say, this especially with Britain. With England and Scotland, they're absolutely, this is the birth of golf. They've got pride. This is their game.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And basically the main switch came during World War I. And it's like when the British golfers came back from World War I, and that's when they started doing the Open, the British Open. That's when all of a sudden they realized that like the Americans have come a long way in 4 years.
Uh-oh.
Because before that, there was a the first American to win a British Open, or the first American, oh my God, the first American to win a U.S. Open when there's British guys there, And I mean, like when we saw with that, the greatest game ever played, the We Met, the whole thing, and he's, like the fact that he won a U.S. Open, and there's all these British superstars there, was like just the biggest thing in the world.
Yeah.
So yeah, but during World War I, the British find out that that the Americans are not only playing, like, led by Walter Hagen as the greatest golfer in the game, the greatest American golfer. Not only had they changed, had they become dramatically improved players, but they had their own style. Like they're putting all kinds of spin on the ball. The backspin did not exist prior to the Americans bringing it over.
Right.
In the first British Open after World War I, they were even showing, they're like, the British were amazed. They had never seen the backspin on these balls. And then they're like, oh, you can't. That's only some like a novelty that one of you guys are doing. And then like all the Americans were doing it. And then it was like a whole thing that they introduced.
Yeah.
And they also introduced the fashion. Walter Hagen and them, they're wearing this like kind of just a whole new style of outfits. They're like just a little more pizzazz. A little more uniqueness to each outfit, and that's one of the things that Hagen talks about consistently in his book. I mean,
his clothes. Yeah.
It reminds me of Benjamin Franklin in his autobiography.
Yeah.
If the listener out there, if you've never read Benjamin Franklin's autobiography, it is like one of the pillars of American literature. It is one of the best books you've ever read. It's only like 110 pages long. It's like the shortest autobiography ever. But it's one of my favorites because Benjamin Franklin, the entire theme of that runs through the entire narrative of Ben Franklin's story is his acquisition of books. Like he starts at the beginning, like when I was young, I did not have a book, and then I got my first book, and then after I got my first book, I like saved up and I got my second book. And he's like, then I found somebody that had a library that had their own personal books, and then I like would go and like borrow one of their books, and then he's like, by the time I was a grown man and had all the money, I had my own library, and then I like traded books with my friends who had their own libraries. Like it's the entire running theme of his book of his story, and it's kind of like that with Hagen, because with his I wish we had kind of devoted more time to that theme, which has been like the undercurrent has been his style and how at first he saw this golfer that he really admired. He thought he was like a really cool dresser, and he just literally imitated. I think we did talk about that. He just literally just copied this guy's outfit.
Oh yeah.
And then so like based off of that, that's when he started adding his own little flourishes, and then he became literally the best dressed golfer in the game. Like everybody, like when he's going, we're gonna be talking about him going to the 1928 British Open today, and he's over there, and I don't have it on my notes or anything, but he talks about in here that the British newspapers that didn't even follow golf, they were in there talking about what he was wearing as though he was like some kind of a fashion model to introduce to their public what this guy's wearing. Like every day, he's
golf
like
red carpet.
Exactly. Like every single day, they're like, Hagen wore brown socks today with like a white tunic. Like it's like they're literally following what he's doing.
Wow.
Wearing his outfits, and that's his recurring theme throughout his entire book is like what he was wearing, how it was like, how he was like the one, we actually did talk about the one game where he was more worried about what he was going to wear than he was about the, getting ready for this game.
Right.
And so that's, so that is just an absolute, so he is like that. I mean, he is like, this, so that's one of the things that he really helps to introduce into the game, to Britain after World War I is this because they were wearing like these like tweed jackets and very restrained colors and everything, very muted colors, and he introduces this like kind of a flashy style, this American style into the game, at this point. So again, it's just another thing. I mean, we could go on and on and on, and we'd never even get to the episode if we did. But I'm just saying, like that's what that's so there's a whole new culture shift.
Sure.
And it's just one more thing that he brought in. The idea of professionals being valued players, not just like you got to dress in the horse stable. He brought that too. So, anyways, we left off last week. 1926. We left off with that Bobby Jones match of the century, and it just how huge that was.
Right.
And so now we're going into 1927. And in 1927, Hagen, basically right off the bat, wins the PGA Championship for the fourth consecutive year.
Oh, nice.
I mean, just another year, another major championship.
Yeah.
For But we've already just kind of mentioned this idea of like this, these growing rivalries, especially since World War One. Since World War One, the British had been getting destroyed in their own open, and this is how they realized that the Americans are like, just completely running out ahead of everybody else, especially them, to their horror, because they could always consider themselves the best.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the stat right here.
Because we got Florida, we can golf all year round.
Absolutely, especially once golf started getting huge. Once these bigger tournaments started catching people's interest, and the explosion, of course, across the country. The golf was getting huge in America, and everybody's playing it, so you're getting way better golfers emerge. So, anyways, the fact I have right here: since 1921, Americans had won every British Open. The Open. It had won every British Open except one, which was 1923, and that was the year Arthur Havers beat Walter Hagen by 1 stroke. So with the exception of that 1-stroke victory in 1923, the Americans had won every U.S. Open, British Open since 1921. We're in 1927. So they've been winning every single year.
Yeah.
They've been cleaning their clocks, and they've been winning like U.S. Opens, and Bobby Jones winning every U.S. Open.
They can't be happy about that.
No, exactly. That's the whole idea. So, so for years there's this long been this rivalry between the Brits and the USA, and so that for the longest time they had been talking about doing like a sort of a standalone like a match play game between two teams, British versus Americans, instead of it being just like the U.S. Open, where it's kind of like a free for all, where each guy's kind of represent their own country, like an actual like a matchup between two teams, the best British golfers versus the best American golfers, and there was numerous sort of attempts to set something like that up. There was like 3 or 4 times that there was like a sort of like a Ryder Cup kind of a thing, but nothing was ever really official. And for years there had been a cup called a Walker Cup, which was it was an amateur idea where it was like the best amateurs in America would face against the best British amateurs on a team, like match play type of situation. Yeah. And so it was called the Walker Cup. And so for years they were like kind of like talking about putting something like this together. And so they finally did. In going into 1927, they started really putting it together in 1926. And so there was a guy named Samuel Ryder. According to his like sort of bio, he was a wealthy British seed merchant who put up the money for this silver Ryder Cup championship trophy. Okay. And they outlined the rules. It was there's like I say, a match play between two teams. And initially, like the first, so Walter Hagen became the first Ryder Cup was in Worcester, Massachusetts. And it had to be all pros, so there's no amateurs. So Bobby Jones wasn't on that first team.
Okay.
But Walter Hagen was the captain, and Hagen went out and picked the best guys that he thought were, suited for this style of play, which is like a match play, not like a tournament play. And so Hagen chose that team, whereas the British team was chosen by this, like they call it a PGA subcommittee, which must have been some little group that decided who was going to be the British participants. And so the Walter Hagen's the captain of the USA, and Ted Ray is the captain. That's the name we've talked about numerous times. Ted Ray is the captain of the first British Ryder Cup team.
All right.
And so true to make sure they're staying consistent with what's already going on. The USA blows out Great Britain in the first Ryder Cup.
Smokes
9.5 to 2.5. So smokes them on June 3rd, between June 3rd and 4th, 1927.
All right.
So yeah, we got the picture of the first two British and American Ryder Cup teams up here, and you can see the Americans have the cup.
The British have a dog though. They do have a dog.
that makes it. Yeah.
That's
a nice little consolation.
It's a good looking pup.
So
there you go. You guys pet the dog. You'll feel better.
So kind of also true to form, kind of what we're to go along with the fashion thing. I was looking up some Ryder Cup stuff today. I've read a lot of stuff that I never really even knew about them, about the Ryder Cup. Because they still do the Ryder Cup. It's a huge event. It's a huge event. And so if you actually go to the
I should have worn my Ryder Cup hat today.
Well, you didn't really know we were doing this specific thing.
I didn't.
But so anyways, if you actually go to like I think it's just like PGA.com, but just type in Ryder Cup, you do an internet, Google search, and there's a whole thing that shows like every American Ryder Cup team from 1927 until now. There's a team photo. And if you look back at like the last like 50 years, like almost every team, they all have their own uniforms. They're all matching, right? They all have like red, white, and blue Ryder Cup gear on, right?
Yeah.
or thereabouts. Like they all have uniforms.
Yep.
But anyways, so it's the picture we have here, they're all wearing different stuff.
Yeah.
But Hagen talks about in his book, because I think it's like the third year that they did it. It's because the Ryder Cup's like every other year. Mm-hmm. And so, anyways, I think it was like because Hagen was going to be the Ryder Cup captain from now on till like I think it was 1939 when he left.
Okay.
And so, anyways, I think it was in the third Ryder Cup. They all wore uniforms.
Oh,
right. And Hagen picked the uniforms, and he talks about in his book how he did it, how he dressed his guys up.
Yeah.
Like how they wore their uniforms. I wanted to see if I could find an original like 1934 or 35 Ryder Cup jacket because they're so freaking cool.
Yeah.
Listen. This is Ryder. This is from the Hagen himself talking about like what the uniforms look like. So he says, during my years as captain of the Ryder Cup team, I insisted that our fellows be fittingly uniformed. Various manufacturers offered knickers and coats free for our use, but I turned them down. Instead, I ordered and paid for beautifully tailored marine blue jackets and pale gray trousers from the Alfred Nelson Company in New York. I obtained permission from the Army to use an official government eagle ensign embossed with crossed golf sticks in the insignia Ryder Cup team for the pockets. Although I consistently pick my teams for their game and not their beauty, I must admit we stacked up pretty well in the Beau Brummel department too when we showed up for the Ryder Cup team matches. So he actually went to. I obtained permission from the Army to use the official government eagle ensign embossed with crossed golf sticks. Instead of like rifles on their thing,
Yeah.
he used the military with two golf sticks.
Wow.
So he got permission for it. So it's just kind of cool. Like it would be cool. As a historian, like kind of there's so many things I wish that sort of modern day people would adapt from the past. Like we talk about Champions Day. I wish that modern day teams would embrace that. I just think it'd be cool to like do something where fans maybe dressed like 1930s gear and they could get in free or have half price on ticket on concessions or something that's like just kind of remembered some of the past and in some really cool ways, not just going read an announcement, go today is the day that was Champions Day, cool everybody. I'm talking about like actually people can kind of participate in it a little bit, and those are like kind of my favorite history things when the modern day kind of gets into it a little bit. But anyways, but how cool would it be if the next like Ryder Cup team would like go wearing like the 1927, right now we're in 22, like the 100th anniversary, whatever. How cool would it be if they went in this, they followed Walter Hagen's strategy, like his outfits here. They went with the blue jackets, with the military, with the cross sticks, the gray pants. Those are the kind of things. It's like history kind of. It'd just be kind of cool to see that they did like a 100-year anniversary or whatever. So anyways, so that's his little description of like and I just thought they were cool because he's like, he's like, I turned down all these different people. They didn't know how to dress us. I picked their stuff out, So anyways, that's just a little aside, but so yeah, that was the first Ryder Cup. That's our little intro to the Ryder Cup, and so that was pretty much that's your bulk of the 1927 story.
Yeah, they were. How many guys on the team?
I think we have 9 guys in the team. I had the list. I didn't put it on the slide, but yeah, I mean it's pretty easily found. I think there was 9 guys in each team. And if you look at the list, especially if you've been following the show, you'll the names are a who's who of people that we've already talked about. All those British legends that we've talked about are all on the team. Gene Sarazen is on the team. Like there's these guys that we've already been talking about for many times are all on these 2 teams. So anyways, so moving on into 1928 now. Right. We're kind of going to the next year. And so 1928 is kind of a cool year too. This is an interesting story that we've got to bring out with this. So right off the bat in 1928, Hagen stars in a movie. And the movie is called The Green Grass Widow.
Oh wow.
So can you guess what the movie's about?
Green Grass Widow golfers.
Yes. Yeah. So it's a kind of a, I guess
boxing.
It's a kind of a comedy movie, I guess, involving golfers. We got a slide with the stills on it.
Is it the? Where's the green grass? There it is.
Yeah. So we've got a couple stills in the screen, and these are like incredibly rare. Like these are. I mean, I got these out of his book, but you don't. But the thing about the Green Grass Widow is that it's like it says just on the Wikipedia page. It says the movie is said to be lost. Like, you can't. I would look for it on eBay. I'm like, or on YouTube. I'm like, man, I want to see this Greengrass Widow just for the heck of it. It's a silent film.
Yeah.
And it's got Hagen, and I think, however old he is, he's in his young 30s.
Some of those movies are lost.
Yeah.
The prints all deteriorated.
But it says, the Wikipedia says, movie is said to be lost, but a copy is said to exist somewhere at the British Film Institute.
Oh.
So there might be a copy.
Okay.
It might be at the British Film Institute.
So you're saying there's a chance.
So they're saying there's a chance, yeah. So anybody who's out there is listening that's at the British Film Institute, or knows anybody that's got a connection to the British Film Institute.
All right.
Yeah, let's take a look. I want to see it.
So kick around. It's
a silent film. So
get that up on TMC for us.
Because I don't really think there's a ton of footage on Hagen back at this time. It's silent films and that.
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be kind of cool. And he's gonna be golfing and hitting the ball, and there's some comedy elements to it. So I just kind of like to see it. I think it'd be kind of cool.
The one guy looks very Groucho Marxy.
That's what I'm saying. When you actually look at the stills we have up here on the screen, the guy totally he's kind of screwing around and. Hagen starts off 1928 starring in a movie. It takes him a while to film this, and then he heads off to England because he's basically headed towards a series of events, and that's where we're kind of going with all this today. So the first thing he shows up to, there's a hotel that he's staying at. Mm-hmm. The hotel is called the Savoy Hotel in London. Okay, and so. So he gets to the Savoy Hotel in London, and the guy who runs the hotel, is trying. He's basically like, his name is Bob Harlow, and Bob Harlow is like sort of his publicity agent when he gets over there. Like, it's not. I take it back. He's not a public. He's this guy. He's like He's the guy he's like his manager, kind of.
Okay.
He's like, but he wants to make, just like a manager, he wants to make money off him. And this guy owns this Savoy Hotel, and the Savoy Hotel is kind of struggling a little bit. And so he's sitting there. So he's like, Hagen, I'm gonna make you a bunch of money for coming over here, but I want you to be like my guy, my cash cow while you're doing it. You see what I'm saying? Through this series of events. And so the first thing he does when Hagen gets there, Hagen had bragged to Bob Harlow, because I guess the Savoy Hotel is like right in the banks of the Thames River in London, which is like the main river that runs through. Hagen had told somebody that he could hit a ball off the top of the Savoy Hotel over the Thames River, and there was a coal ship, a coal tug, I think he called it.
You have to know there was
a
whiskey
coal barge
involved in this
I'm sure.
conversation.
So
as
he
well.
brags that he could hit a ball over the Thames off the Savoy and hit this coal barge that was like parked on the other side of the Thames.
Oh my god!
And so
I love him.
Yeah, I know, me too. So Bob Harlow goes, okay. He arranges the first thing when Hagen gets off the boat. He's like, all right, you ready to hit this ball over the Thames and hit this
What
coal
are you
barge?
drinking? What are you?
Exactly. Hagen's like, I didn't really know I was even doing all this. Bob Harlow has it all like set up. Like he's like 100 people up there watching on top of this roof.
All right, give me a stick, give me a ball.
No, he
let's
doesn't
go.
show up. Hagen he's like late getting there.
Oh.
He's kind of screwing around downtown and stuff, right? And so he kind of burns up Bob Harlow, and he's like, God damn it, I had it all set up. You're supposed to come out here for this event. And he goes, well, let's do it at night, because if I miss, he's like, whether I make it or I don't, nobody will know. Like it's the same thing. It's like nobody will really. I can just claim I did it if I'm not successful. And Bauer goes, no, we have to do it where people can see it. So they wait to the next day. So they move it to the next day. And so Hagen goes up there in front of these people and he does it. He hits it over the Thames and he hits that coal barge with this, off the roof. So that's like an auspicious beginning for for the things that come after this. And so he does it. So everybody's like, yeah, Hagen, like, way to go, So he does this. He does this thing. And so the next thing he does is, due to this movie and due to this publicity stunt, due to the travel over to, to England, where she's got to take a boat and everything,
right.
Hagen had not played golf in 2 months. Right. And so he hasn't done it. He's just, he hasn't played golf. He's been living the life of a superstar,
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, at this moment, so like the next thing that Bob Harlow sets up for him is it's a challenge match versus this guy named Archie Compston. And Archie Compson is like this, like really like he's just kind of looking him up. He wasn't like he didn't really win any major tournaments. He wasn't really like a big tournament name. Not like Ted Ray and these guys, but he was from all I've read, he was like an excellent match player, like one-on-one, like point type golf. That's what he excelled in. And so the British are setting him up. They're like, we want you to play Archie Compson in this, and they called it a challenge match. And so just to give you an idea how big this was, the prize money was £750, which equaled $30,750, which is the largest. It's the largest purse ever in the UK. So this is bigger than any tournament. This is bigger than any British Open that they've hosted. Yeah. This £750. This is the biggest. This according to Hagen's book, this is the biggest prize they've ever issued. Right, and so Archie, he might not be the name that's super familiar with us, but they're like, let's see what you can do against Archie Compson. You see, and so anyway, so interest is massive. And Hagen says right here in the quote, to say that Great Britain was excited about this match between Archie Compson and me would be one of the classic understatements of all time. The stake of £750, about $3,750 in our money, was the highest ever paid for a golf match in that country. And more important than that, the British were getting darn tired of having their trophy cup taken out of their country. If Compson could handle me, fans and experts alike figured they'd have three possible players: Abe Mitchell, Archie Compson, and George Duncan, capable of keeping the big cup home for a while. It says, so much interest centered on the match with Compson that temporary membership badges were issued for gallery fans at a fee of 15 shillings. So, all right. So yeah. Anyways, okay. This is where he gets in this here. So this is the next little like sort of ditty that it comes into this, right? Mm-hmm. So hold on one second. So he says, okay. Yeah. So this is what's kind of key. So Harlow Hagen having showed up late for his. This thing for the hitting the ball off the roof, and also for other issues that for being late for different events or whatever, right? Yeah. There's this kind of funny story which this becomes the centerpiece of sort of everything that's going on right here. So it's just worth reading it to kind of explain. Hagen does a far better job of explaining than I could.
Right, before you get into that,
yeah.
I had the from the Cape Gazette, the picture of Walter on the roof of the Savoy hitting the ball.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Oh my God, there it is.
Yeah.
Look at him. He's not lying. He's like, there I am.
Yeah. So there he is. Yeah. So that's all right. All right. So he was late for these shenanigans.
Damn, nice picture, Walter. He's like, here I am. There's the Thames right behind me.
Yeah.
That's awesome. All
right.
That's a great shot. He's all smiling. Yeah. He's like, I did it too.
Yeah.
So anyways, this was kind of a cool story, right?
Yeah.
So in the early morning of April 26th, the day prior to the match, I docked to Southampton, some 100 miles from London. Upon our arrival at the hotel in London, Bob Harlow, so this is where it is right here. Bob Harlow produced a Scotland Yard detective who was to be my shadow for the following 2 days. So he's talking about a previous match. Since my late arrival at the Abe Mitchell match in 1926 had created so much unfavorable publicity, Bob had determined I'd be on time for the Compson deal. That fellow Bob hired was just the sort of detective I'd always pictured from English fiction. An enormous man standing about 6'3". He was heavy and muscular and adorned with a fierce, bristling mustache. He balked, however, when Bob asked him to wear a Sherlock Holmes type hat. Cartoonists and news cameramen had a field day picturing him follow me around. So just to pause for a second. So Bob Harlow hires this Scotland Yard detective.
Hey, can you wear this hat?
To follow Hagen around.
Seriously, you got to wear this hat.
Yeah, they drew the line at that. But so Hagen's got his own personal like friggin' bodyguard / like minder to take care of him to make sure he gets to places on time and everything.
Oh my God!
So this is Hagen. He's the greatest guy. He's like. This is personnel. Oh, here's another shot of him on the roof. That is so friggin' cool, man.
Yeah, this is a poster you can buy.
That's almost the City of Champions official poster, dude. Like that's the kind of stuff, those little idiosyncrasies like that. That's our stuff, because if you're listening to the show, you see a picture of Walter Hagen on the roof. It's kind of like the Sid Howe thing.
Yeah.
Like we don't say Sid Howe was not related to Gordy. Like that's I mean, we don't never make that disclaimer whenever we talk about Sid Howe.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like if you're listening to the show, you're following the show, you know that's a ridiculous question.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm saying. Like this right here, anybody that sees this photo, you know what this is.
But we're talking
28
here. Both of these images say 22.
Oh, well,
Both
maybe
of
he
these.
did it before then. Maybe he
Yeah.
did it before.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe it's not from the Savoy. Did they say a Savoy on there?
Yeah, it says a Savoy, but it says both.
Maybe
of them,
the dates
both
are wrong.
images. Both of the images. One actually, the other one said 23. And
Do
this
they
one
have
said
the
22.
Did they have the actual newspaper stamp on the back?
No. Well, this is a poster, right? that you
Well,
can buy.
they maybe got the date wrong
And then
because
the other
unless
one.
it's got the main way to date photos, besides like little things like looking at their body style and stuff like this, or like different stuff that they're wearing, is if they actually have the newspaper clip. Because what they do is that they would take a picture of the photo, and then they would, in the original photo, would have the actual clipping from the newspaper that they used it in glued to the back. So that's how you can really tell the date of, just for anybody listening at home. If you ever see an original photo, that's how you can really tell, make sure you know that that's the date, because it's the original photo. It's got the newspapers. And a lot of times they'll actually include the newspaper photo that it was used in that little sliver on the back, so you know for a fact when it was used.
Right.
So I'm not trying to say he didn't do it in 22, but I'm reading right out of his own mouth.
But the other one is the other one says 23, and you can tell it's the exact same photo shoot because he has the same suit on.
But
he looks like a 28.
yeah,
Walter.
what I'm saying is that maybe the text or whatever that they got it from 23. I mean, it's not too far of a difference to say that a sliver of the number 8 was
Right.
somehow wiped off or sliced off,
Yeah.
and that 23. You know, they just, because they're like,
But I love that
because the other
shot.
they're whoever put the photo out online like that is probably thinking, who the hell's ever going to notice?
Right.
Who the hell's
But
ever going to notice 23 or
He's with
28?
that swing. You can see his full golf swing there, which is just
That's awesome. I love that
it's very,
photo.
very cool.
That's like our official photo of this show. Dude. One of them. Hold on to that photo. Let's keep hold on to that photo. Maybe we can get this poster, because that is, especially that one right there, man.
Yeah, I
that
love
thing
that.
is so awesome. That's 28. And if he hit one off in 23, but he doesn't mention anything about it. Like he doesn't mention anything about
I was
it.
in 23 and I was hitting balls off the roof.
Yeah, he makes a big deal about it in this story here. He's
Yeah.
like, this was a big deal. Like, he didn't say I did it back in 23 and then did it in 28.
Yeah.
You know, I already demonstrated I could do it. He just they were like,
because he was like, let's do it at
yeah,
night.
I'll read you the he said, he's like,
just in case I miss.
yeah. So I love that, because anybody that's watching is like, yeah, that's Hagen. You know, so they know that that's his.
Yeah.
So anyways,
But we got Hagen and Compton.
yeah, so we're Compton. So anyways, so we've got this. He's got this huge Scotland Yard police officer following him, which is just, it's just another, goes once again into his sort of personality type, because he's got to have a personal bodyguard to like basically wake him up and follow around, make sure he gets to place on time. You know, that's like juvenile. It's so juvenile, it's hilarious. And so the British press played that up massively. And so anyway, it says, Tom Webster, Europe's foremost sports tunist, did a series on us. One of them depicted me deep in the luxurious softness of a Savoy hotel bed, my head wrapped in a towel, an alarm clock perched on the top of the towel, ringing out in an ear-splitting blast. He drew the detective waiting patiently outside the door, hoping for my appearance. The Evening Express featured the story with headlines reading, Hagen's human alarm clock, a detective to get him out of bed tomorrow, 1 day's practice. So Hagen continues, our match of 72 holes was scheduled 36 for Friday and the final 36 for Saturday. April 20th, my pal, the big Scotland Yard detective, got me out of a comfortable bed about 6 a.m. on the first day. After a leisurely breakfast, the limousine placed us on the first tee shortly before 9. As our Daimler pulled up in front of the clubhouse, out stepped the Scotland Yard giant, followed by Bob Harlow, then me. A crowd of some several thousand people had already gathered, and at the sight of our little group, they burst into shouts of laughter. The British have a keen sense of the ridiculous. So he's got Bob Harlow, him in this huge, because it had already been played up in the press. So can you imagine? It's already played up in the press, and then you see them pull up in this Daimler, and there's Hagen gets out. He's got this big 6 foot. I mean, you can see right here how kind of, he's shorter than anybody else, kind of, and he's got this big Scotland Yard guy step out of the truck with him, and they're like, "That's the detective." He's got his own bodyguard, and you can see in this little photo you brought up right here, how he's got this personality. He's just walking around laughing and stuff.
Is he smoking?
Yeah, he's got a cigarette in his left hand as he's walking down the golf course. Yes, he does. So anyways, yeah. So they. So anyways, that's his little story with that. So now he's talking about what actually happened. So anyways, in this match, Walter Hagen is absolutely destroyed. Okay, Hagen gets annihilated in it. That's why I mentioned. It was good to mention that he hadn't played golf in 2 months.
He was doing that movie.
He's doing the movie, and he actually says, he's like, I hadn't played golf in 2 months. He said, I took one of the 2 worst beatings I've ever taken that he'd ever taken in his life. And so this is his little story that he throws with it, which I think I thought it was hilarious. So anyways, so he begins. He said, several incidents of the match amused me. Even while Archie was pulling up his lead, the Moore Park officials conceived the idea of having a tall caddy carrying a big blackboard around with us, on which they marked the standing of the match after each hole. Not once did my name appear on the board. Another site that, because they're keeping track of the match wins, and so he didn't even get his name on the board. That's how bad he's getting destroyed. Not once did my name appear on the board. Another sight that really got me was Compton's caddy toting a large toy black cat, Archie's mascot and good luck piece. So this guy's carrying this huge black cat. That's not helping his confidence either. Said, the gallery threw me too. Never in my long career of competitive golf have I been conscious of getting the kind of applause I received at the 15th hole when I made a fair recovery shot from a trap. I realized that for the first time in my life, I was getting sympathy applause.
Oh, no.
Yeah. They're like, congratulations. Good job, Walter.
Oh, yay.
Good for you.
You're out of the big tall grass.
Yeah, like, you made a good shot for once. He's like, oh, God. He's like, for the first time in my life, I was getting sympathy applause.
Oh, boy.
Compton was a great golfer, and he worked hard at his game. He did everything right. He gave me the worst beating of my career, and I had only one statement to make to the British press. When you are laid out good and flat, you must not squawk. So that's his quote. One quality sparked Archie Compton's play from the moment we stepped on the first tee on Friday: confidence. He had it right in the beginning, and I certainly did nothing to take it from him. His wonderful control and consistent brilliance on every hole, his aggressiveness, all were remarkable. The hope of the British took a definite leap upward in looking forward to their Open, which was to begin on Monday, May 8th. Archie had put in long periods of intense practice, and it paid off. Yet I've learned through much experience that it's difficult to hold a peak for 2 events scheduled within such a short time of each other, as were our challenge match in the British Open. The Saturday morning the London press was jubilant after our initial 36 holes on Friday. Interviews with Archie quoted him as saying, I am as good as any golfer in the world today, and I am going to prove it. Needless to say, I had no comment to make to that. He proved it to me the next day. Sunday morning, I woke with a headache, and I asked for the morning papers and a bicarbonate with which to digest them. Here are some of the headlines. Hagen submerged, conquering Compton, the rout of Walter Hagen, American gets his own medicine, Hagen's ghost is laid, the eclipse of Hagen, Hagen takes his psychic. Sports pages quoted Archie as saying, I will play anyone, anywhere, for anything. The sedate Morning Post remarked in an editorial, such as a signal victory as that accomplished by Archie Compton in his match with Walter Hagen deserves more than passing celebration. It is an event that must be dear and refreshing to a British golfer's heart, for which for a long time has been uncheered by any challenge to the American ascendancy. Like, they're going all in on this. Someone told me that the great castle at Moore Park, used as a clubhouse, had once been a favorite rendezvous of Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn. If so, their memories of it must have been far pleasanter than mine. The great Tommy Webster ended his series of cartoons on the Compton match with another picture of me in bed at the Savoy. This time the huge Scotland Yard detective was astride my stomach, using his massive bulk to restrain me while I struggled valiantly to get free. So they're just doing these comic series on Walter while he's there with this guy. It's like a Mutt and Jeff, they're doing a series. There's a whole series of these cartoons. I'd love to see if they have them out there. With my head protruding at one end and my feet at the other. I'll rewind. The great Tommy Webster ended his series of cartoons on the Compton match with another picture of me in bed at the Savoy. This time, the huge Scotland Yard detective was astride my stomach, using his massive bulk to restrain me while I struggled valiantly to rise, with my head protruding at one end and my feet at the other. Flashes of lightning zigzagged from the alarm clock. The caption, Harlow should have paid Scotland Yard £5 to keep Hagen in bed, 18 and 17. So they're mocking him in this cartoon, too. Perhaps I took solace in my defeat by remembering Bobby Jones' comeback after I had trimmed him 12 and 11. Our match in Florida had taken place in February and March of 1926. He'd gone out that same year after bowing to me in the worst beating he'd ever taken and had won the British Open at Royal Lytham in St. Anne's in the United States National Open in Scioto. There was only one play for me to make, and I made it. I left the memory of the licking I'd taken right where it belonged, on the links of Moore Park. I was no temperamental star. I was just a fellow working at golf for a living. Moore Park, of necessity, must be for me just another 72 holes. So he's like, I had to leave that behind. I took a friggin' beating. But the good news is he has a chance at redemption.
Right.
Because just a week or two later here, a couple weeks later, is the British Open.
Game on.
It is totally game on. And this is like my favorite part, of course, of the story. It's, this is another component which could be like this Walter Hagen movie. He just gets thoroughly thrashed. He gets beat, tore up by the media. They're making comic strips about him. He's just got to deal with this humiliation, right? He's got to deal with this beating. He's like the extreme highs of hitting the ball across the Thames. Succeeded at that venture to getting crushed in that tournament and then getting mocked because of this. He's got the Scotland Yard detective as a wet nurse walking around with him. And then now he's gets a chance for redemption. It's like, if you're at this point in time, Jamie, if you have money to bet,
yeah.
Who are you putting your money on for the British Open?
I'm gonna put it on Walt.
Me too.
I'm hoping. I'm really hoping.
Me too. I put my money on Walter. I don't care if he got slaughtered or not, dude. That was a friggin' exhibition game, dude. He doesn't care about that. Hell, he's got to have a Scotland Yard detective just to wake him up. He's barely taking it even seriously, man. So now we're gonna find out what it looks like when you make Walter Hagen mad.
All right. Okay.
Check this out. This is like Rocky right here. Yeah. This is so awesome. This is like Rocky. Like you can play that Rocky theme too, right? Where he's like, they're getting ready for that, the eye of the tiger. He's getting all ready.
Back, yeah.
But he's doing the montage. Like we're gonna need a montage. Where he's getting ready to get through this. So here you go. So this is getting ready for the British Open. This is an amazing quote. Okay, this might have to go down as one of those little shorts we put up on YouTube or one of these little clips. Because this is an amazing quote. This is amazing. Like I say, picture this just like this Eye of the Tiger soundtrack. But maybe we can do that. Maybe we can do some kind of editing with this Eye of the Tiger background. Okay, because this is, I think, an amazing preparation for this tournament. The newspapers had a few things to say about me that week too. After they'd hashed and rehashed the Compton victory, most writers insisted I was more quiet and a bit more serious. Well, they were right on part of it. I was serious about one thing: winning the British Open. That defeat by Compton had been a terrific blow to my pride. I'd had the smile wiped off my face temporarily, but I hadn't lost my sense of humor. I had come face to face with the very obvious fact that no trickery or funny stuff was going to win a third British Open for me. This time I'd let the other boys take the risks. I intended to play for safety all the way. I had 1 week to get some badly needed practice. On Monday, I left London and checked into the Guildford Hotel about 7 miles from the golf links at Sandwich, where the Open would begin on Thursday. This famous old resort hotel, standing only 100 feet from the sea, high in the Dover coast, was an ideal place for me to follow the routine I'd set for myself. I really went to work. I played endless rounds of golf, existed on a rigid diet, spent numerous sessions in a Turkish bath, and tried to put the beating I'd taken from Archie completely out of my mind. I locked my little black book in my trunk and even refused the tempting phone calls. Believe me, the black book and the telephone numbers I'd collected in Great Britain made that last bit of business hard to take. In such a romantic setting, I felt somewhat selfish enjoying it alone, particularly since I had, in London the previous week, introduced Douglas Fairbanks Jr. to a very lovely British girl who had been my companion for a number of parties. Young Doug was in London with his dad, who was setting up his new Fairbanks International Company. Doug Jr. was to star in his dad's productions, and both the Fairbankses had assured my beautiful girlfriend a chance for a movie career. With such powerful competition, my withdrawal from circulation just at the time promised to be a catastrophic for my romantic life. So that's his preparation. He said, I had to put my black book away. Yeah. After all the time, he's like, this is serious. I'm done. He goes, do you have any idea how serious I took this? I had to put my black book away. And Douglas Fairbanks is in town.
Yeah.
The biggest movie star in the world. He's like,
I could have been rolling with Doug.
Douglas Fairbanks, and especially he introduced him to these girls. And he's like, I got Douglas Fairbanks in London right now, ready to go party. They're calling him, going, where are you at, Walter? What the hell? And he's like, I got to get ready for this Open. They're like, what are you talking about? You've never needed to get ready for a tournament before. And he's like, no, I just took the worst three. He's like, that's what I'm saying, this eye of the tiger, like, eye of the tiger. They got, and he's like, puts his black book away, playing golf, drinking a friggin' mimosa at breakfast, probably, whatever. That's what I'm saying. Like, that's Walter getting ready for it. That's what I'm saying. I just love his little, like, prep. He's like, the biggest thing I had to do was put my black book away. You think that's easy? He's like, try telling it to my dating life. It wasn't easy. So, anyways, that's him getting ready. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, like I say, the eye of the tiger. That's Walter Hagen, eye of the tiger. So, anyways, so now the tournament itself. So Hagen continues. It's basically sort of a continuation of what he was just leading up to. 8 times from 1920 through 1929, I played in the British Open Championship. The first time I finished 53rd. Then I finished 6th once, 3rd and 2nd once, and 4 times I won it. I'm proud of the whole record, but I know my greatest thrill came from the win at Sandwich. I believe British people appreciated that win most too. I had received tremendous acclaim in 1924 when I won at Hoy Lake, but there was increased warmth and sincerity to the applause, the cheering, the quick words of congratulations, and the eager smiles from the huge galleries following me around when I won in 1928. So fast forward a little bit here. This what's kind of cool is in the last 9 holes of the course when he was like winning this and that. The Prince of Wales is following him, like in the gallery. He's following him, right? And so at the end of after he won the British Open, which he, spoiler alert, he tells us in there, he's like, after I won this thing, right? So it would have been a wise bet to put your money on him.
Yeah.
So the Prince of Wales gives him the trophy, like presents him the trophy, right? So this is like, this is what's awesome. I just want to pause for a second because there's another quote to read. But this is a guy, I forgot to even write down how old he is. He's in his young 30s, right?
Right.
33 years old in 1925, so he's in his mid-30s now. Sure. 38, 35, 36 years old approximately, right? Yeah. So this is a guy that, like, we have spent the last, what episode are we on right now? Episode
13.
13 of Walter Hagen. Every single episode has been some kind of a tournament or championship or some event, right? And this is a guy... He's already had the extreme thrills of victory to the most ridiculous degree, right? I mean, it's just tournament championships and all over the place like this, right? And then he takes this like beating from Archie Compton, and he's just all of a sudden now he's like, a man sort of on a mission to win this, right? And what's so interesting about this, like, sort of next quote we're going to read, this next little bit is just like. That there was more in the tank of like a higher level he could get to. You know what I mean? He'd already this is his 3rd British Open. Right. He's won 4 straight PGA championships. Yeah. That the fact that there's a higher level of fame that he could get to at this point. Right. And that's what's about to hit here. The Prince of Wales insists on handing him the trophy himself. Right? He's like, and he follows Walter and he's like, this is this. And so so that's where I'm foreshadowing, because what we're about to experience here is another gear. If we already thought that Walter Hagen was a star or a superstar at this point, wait till you see wait till we hear the remaining the next level gear that he gets up to for
up to 11.
Exactly. He's on the 11 on the superstar scale. And you're going to hear this because this was nothing. The British press appreciated this. They saw him. They just mocked him. At this point, he was a superstar in Britain too. They had the largest tournament or largest exhibition amount ever with him and Archie Compton. He gets destroyed. Right? He just hits the ball off the top of the Savoy across the Thames, which is as newspaper fodder. Oh, yeah. Right? He loses to Archie Compton. They mock him for a week. Yeah. Right? He bounces back and wins the British Open 2 weeks later. Right? Yeah. This guy's a legend. Into their eyes, they're like, you don't have to, if you're living at that moment and you see it, you're like, we just mocked this guy for a week, and he bounces back and wins the British Open right in our face, right? He takes the British Open like this. Like, they're like, this guy is awesome, right? He took the abuse in good humor, and he came back and threw it right back in our face a week later, right? Like, here's how do you like this, So anyway, so this is just like basically listen to the higher level gear he gets into for how big, because these people recognize that They're like, this guy's already a star. He gets destroyed. He comes back and shows us what a star he is, right? So this is what he says. So the Prince of Wales gives him this cup, and this is what the Prince of Wales tells him while he hands him the trophy. He says, "We're getting a little jealous about the cup," he said in his short talk, but we like it going to the best player. We hope the Americans will continue coming over so that we may have the opportunity eventually of putting it over. I thanked him in the gallery for the warmth of their hospitality and expressed my happiness at winning their great trophy again. I don't want to bore you, I said, but I'm going to keep on coming over. That was my first meeting with the Prince of Wales, but it was not to be my last. We became firm friends and spent many hours together, both on the links or off. Just, Prince of Wales, boys now. Boys, Balmoral, wherever. This is their, that's where they're, this is now his boy. So that's one thing. Just added a new buddy from added a new buddy from this. The day after the championship, I returned to London with the British trophy once again in my possession. The press was a bit more pleasing to me this time, carrying such streamers as Hagen's great victory, Prince watches Hagen, a bonny golfer, the golf blue riband, Hagen's farewell. Now he's a hero in the British press. They love him. And we've already seen in the earlier years when he first went over there, they were mocking him too, right?
Yeah.
So now he's beloved there.
Yeah.
So, and the Daily Mail commented, all over the world at this moment, golfers are engaged in simultaneous act of homage. They are taking off their hats with the most generous and courtliest of flourishes to Walter Hagen. Let me just read this again real quick. This is their ode to Walter Hagen, the Daily Mail. So all over the world at this moment, golfers are engaged in a simultaneous act of homage. They are taking off their hats with the most generous and courtliest of flourishes to Walter Hagen. Like they're doffing their caps to him around the world it was great that he just took the beating of his life like this and came out and just stuck it right in everybody's face, Like they're just taking their caps off at this point. The greatest of golfers, right? So Hagen continues, I asked Bob Harlow to arrange a return match with Archie Compton in America, and together we persuaded him it would be a great moneymaker. So he's heading back to America, and the Archie Compton's coming with them to kind of repeat what they did in Britain. But that's not going to be the point of what we're about to talk about here. That's just a side. So Compton comes over with Bob Harlow. So he sailed on the same boat with us on our return. Arrangements were made by cable for 36 holes at Boston and 36 at Westchester, Biltmore, and New York. Our ship docked in New York on June 8th, and the welcome was really tremendous. A wonderful band at the dock kept playing among my souvenirs, and thousands of golf fans and thousands more who didn't know one club from another lined the streets. The late Mayor Jimmy Walker welcomed me at the City Hall following a long motor ride down Fifth Avenue, with police on motorcycles and enthusiastic children waving and yelling at me. At the City Hall, Mayor Walker presented me with the key to the city of New York. We then proceeded to the Biltmore Hotel, where the president of the Westchester Biltmore had the presidential suite packed with all my pals and decorated with huge floral gifts and my 2 cases of selected bottles of imported Hipsonica, which I had managed to mix in with my many and assorted pieces of luggage. So we smuggled in some liquor, right? So, and then when they unpacked the luggage, he's got some liquor with him and his pals that are all waiting for him in his hotel when he gets there, right? One bit of business at the dock. This is one of my favorite stories of the entire bit. So he says, one bit of business at the dock just before just remind the listener, L.A. Young is going to figure into the story. L.A. Young is his partner in the golf in the Hagen Golf Clubs industry, right? It's his partner. So one bit of business at the dock just before we walked down the gangplank. I had also brought a magnum of very fine old champagne, which I had placed. And see, when they smuggled it, this is the middle of Prohibition.
Yeah.
Liquor's illegal. Not allowed to have liquor, but it's not illegal in Britain, so he can bring back whatever the hell he wants, right? So he's bringing back some fine champagne. One bit of business at the dock, just before we walked down the gangplank, I had also brought a magnum of very fine old champagne, which I had placed inside the velvet-lined trophy case belonging to the famed British trophy. I asked Mayor Walker to carry the nude trophy ashore for me, while I handed the locked trophy case containing the champagne to my old friend L.A. Young from Detroit. I told him to meet us later at the hotel with the trophy. So this poor guy thinks he's got the trophy in the case.
Don't shake it up too much.
Don't shake the trophy. L.A. Young was delighted with the task of carrying what he presumed to be the British trophy through customs. He had some difficulty since he had no key, and customs officials like to see what's being brought into this country. However, he finally made it and arrived, hot and disheveled, about an hour after our party at the Biltmore Hotel was well underway. I complimented him, opened the case with the key from my pocket, and poured everybody a taste of the sparkling bubbly. L.A.'s face was really red when he saw what he'd worked so hard to get through customs for me, particularly since he did not indulge. However, he took the joke gracefully. The next afternoon, Archie Comps and I played an exhibition match at the Westchester Biltmore against Gene Sarazen and Johnny Farrell. He goes on about the Compson match, but it's just that, dude, L.A. Young carries this case.
That's
he
great.
carries the trophy case. It's full of shit. It's got champagne in it. And he's got to get it through customs for him. It doesn't even know. I mean, this is a movie script.
Yeah.
This is a movie script, man. He's coming back through New York. He gets on the gang. So let's just to summarize it, kind of end this like this. He gets back to New York, comes down the gangplank. There's a basically ticker tape parade through New York. He gets the key to the city. His luggage is unpacked at the richest hotel in town. His buddies are already there waiting for him, and the luggage he brings back, they're all drinking like bootleg, bathtub gin or whatever.
Yeah.
They're drinking better stuff than that, but they're drinking stuff that's being smuggled from Canada and shit. He's got a suitcase full. They got a luggage full of liquor that he brought from Britain to celebrate his arrival, right? So they're opening up the luggage. They're drinking, having fun with in the hotel with the stuff he brought in his luggage.
Yeah.
And his business partner, poor L.A. Young, is bringing the real stuff.
Yeah.
The champagne smuggled in the trophy case. So he shows up. He's like, Walter, I got your luggage here. The trophy case. And you're like, oh, you're just in time, L.A. We were looking to get that champagne going. He said,
perfect timing,
perfect
my friend.
timing. Your
Perfect
timing is so
timing.
perfect. Like this is the guy. This is I'm saying, like, this is the next level of stardom, man. This guy is living a life that is just unbelievable, man. Like, he's an international superstar. Like, took that stardom up to an 11. We're talking about 1928. This is a lot of people talk about like the Babe Ruth and the 1927 murders, row Yankees, one of the best teams ever in that. So this is like Babe Ruth's heyday, and Hagen's living like this. It's the Roaring 20s. It's another example of what's going on in this country. Like this is one of these guys that's faces in the print who's living this kind of larger than life lifestyle, just a beloved sporting figure, and is shaping America into like the place that it became. I mean, he's just one of these guys that is just part of the fabric which wove together the American culture. So I love him. And that's
oh my God,
Hagen.
He's a riot.
God,
He's got to find that movie.
I know, we got to find anybody at that British, what do we say, is a British Film Institute.
Film Institute, yeah.
Yeah, I want to see it because that's. I mean, to my knowledge, I mean, maybe there's a couple of things with Hagen in video, but I think he's probably older.
Right.
But this is 1928. This is, I wouldn't say he's peak Hagen based on that photo that we just saw. A little pouch around his belly, but a little gut going. Living high in the hog though.
Smuggling a.
He did talk. He does talk about after this. He's like, I realized I had to keep myself in a little bit better shape.
Yeah.
It sounds like 1928, late 1927, early 1928.
Learning some lessons.
Yeah, it sounded like late 27, early 28. He was getting a little lazy on the physical exercise, But he said, why wouldn't you? The guy's a freaking megastar, and just winning championships everywhere he goes.
All right. So, we'll do it more with Walter again next time, right? All right. We'll do it all again next time.
Next week?
Next week.
All right.
All right.